George Kirby will likely start the year on the injured list due to shoulder inflammation. Let's talk about it. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, March 7th, 2025. This is Tiding Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, you can check out our Patreon. All you have to do to check that out is click the link in the description of this episode. So we were planning on just doing a simple Fanfiction Friday episode today, but about 8 or so minutes into our initial recording, the news comes out that George Kirby has been shut down from throwing due to shoulder inflammation. Yikes. We're still going to get to a couple of your trades towards the end of the show, but this news obviously takes priority. So according to Mariners GM Justin Hollander, this is not something the Mariners feel will be a long-term issue. They ran an MRI on the shoulder and it revealed no structural damage, thankfully. George said he was overall fine, but Hollander joked that that was an argument that he wasn't going to win. So the Mariners are being cautious to let the inflammation run its course, and he will likely start the year on the injured list because he won't be able to ramp back up in time for opening day. So I would assume that at least one, maybe two, hopefully not many more than that, rehab starts in his future down in Tacoma. So that sucks. Colby, what's your reaction?
Yeah, you know, it's you just kind of have to hope that Hollander is correct. I don't want to say that he's telling you the truth because I'm sure right now they think this is all it is. Mm-hmm. But it's a shoulder injury. Those are far more serious than elbow injuries. Now again, if it's just inflammation and he's only gonna, if he's just gonna be shut down for a couple of weeks and then they just need a couple more weeks after that to kind of ramp him back up again.
Yeah.
Fine.
I didn't listen to the whole media appearance that Hollander made. The vibe that I got from what he was saying was like, it kind of seems like Kirby will actually be back before the end of spring. It's just he won't be able to ramp back up fully in time for him to be ready to go and throw in an actual major league game.
Yeah, I'd rather have George Kirby throw 2 innings than Emerson Hancock try to throw 5, but
we all know how you feel about that.
Yay, more Hancock starts. Although, might have good news on that in a second. Yeah, it sucks. I mean, because again, shoulders are scary things. And right now, if you're a pitcher, shoulder injuries are the most likely thing to end your career. Right? There's the thoracic outlet syndrome, I believe is what it's called. That is probably the most devastating injury a pitcher can have to their career. Now, George doesn't have that as far as we know. Right now, it's just inflammation and there's no structural problem. So, and
by the way, it should be mentioned that he has dealt with inflammation in the shoulder before. He missed about a month in 2021.
4 years ago, though. So I think you should be mildly concerned in all seriousness here because it's a shoulder thing. And while elbow might seem scary because typically, if you have elbow inflammation, very often that leads down the path to Tommy John. But as we know, Tommy John surgery is not nearly as scary as it once was. Shoulder surgery is terrifying. And so it's a very concerning area for the injury. Now, again, when it's just words are being used like inflammation and there's no structural damage, again, you hope that they're right. And the Mariners are, for all their flaws, they're pretty good at this. Protecting pitchers and their health and all of that.
Just like at Brian Wu last year.
Right. And so you do hope that's all it is. But yeah, until I see Kirby throwing, for the Mariners, until everything looks good. And honestly, probably even it'll probably even take a couple starts of him just, going out there and pitching for me to feel pretty good. This is behind you. This could be something that lingers. This could be something that, becomes something that it's not right now. So I think we should all be a little bit concerned. And I do think the Mariners should strongly consider going out there and protecting themselves a little bit more. Because right now, let's say this Kirby thing is what it is, and he's going to miss a couple starts or whatever, maybe even the first month if they really want to play it safe. Fine. What happens if another starter goes out? So your safety net's pretty much gone. So I do think they need to go out and explore other options to add an actual starting pitcher to their rotation, even if it is for just a short time period. But yeah, I think you should be mildly concerned. I don't think panic quite yet.
No.
But I think you should, again, mildly concerned is probably the way that I would operate until you see George on the mound and he's feeling good.
Yeah, I'd feel worse if they hadn't done testing yet and they weren't sure yet what was exactly going on with him. I'd also feel worse if like he wasn't actually throwing the ball well this spring and the velo was down, but that's not the case. Like the things that we do know are he was throwing the ball well, the velo was about where it needs to be. He just wasn't feeling great after his outings.
Taking a little extra time for him to bounce back.
And so, you know, the Mariners, they're looking at the big picture here, right? We need George Kirby for most of the season. That's what Justin Hollander said. It's March. Let's shut him down now. Let's let the inflammation run its course. And hopefully we can get him back here in a few weeks' time, right? Mm-hmm. So, hopefully they've gotten out ahead of this thing, and that's all it's going to be is only just, you know, a couple of weeks, and hey, maybe he's even back before the end of the spring. He's just not able to actually, you know, go for a full, you know, major league start, and probably needs at least a start or two down in Tacoma.
Yeah, that's one of the other things that's a little bit concerning here. The start-stop in spring training, it affects guys in different ways. And so, you know, even if George does come back in, you know, mid-April or early April even, it's like, okay, well, how many starts does he need to kind of get the feel for things again and all that? So, yeah, it's obviously not good news for the Mariners. It does sound like, for now at least, they've dodged like catastrophic news. But again, just something to keep an eye on. I would not feel very good about George until I see him make a couple starts for the Mariners and velocity's there and he's bouncing back fine. Like, you know, and that's how it was with Brian Wu last year, right? He's back, and then let's just ease back a little bit here. And it took until the second half when he was out there every 5 days and dominating before I think we all felt really good that Wu was healthy.
Yeah, so it's just better to err on the side of caution here. You still have, you know, 4 amazing starters in your rotation. If all this is going to take is a couple of you know, weeks out of the regular season, then so be it, right? So hoping for the best, hoping that this is all that is, and you know, we'll see. But let's talk about where the Mariners go from here, what the plan is in Kirby's expected absence in just a moment. But first, a reminder: this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you once again by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. So, George Kirby might be out for a couple of starts. He might be out for a whole month. Who knows, right? We'll have to wait and see, right? How this injury progresses, how his recovery progresses, when he's going to be able to throw again, all that stuff, right? How many rehab assignments or how many rehab starts it's going to take, all that. So we'll see. But no matter the case, it does seem that he's at least going to miss some time in the regular season. And so the Mariners are going to have to deal with that. So Colby's worst nightmare is about to come true. Emerson Hancock is about to start games for the Seattle Mariners.
I am dead inside. And let's be perfectly clear, that is a choice they are making. They absolutely have other options.
So let's talk about those other options.
To be fair, they might actually make those other choices, but for now, it appears that Hancock is just going to be the guy, which I say this with all sincerity and with no disrespect intended. Barf.
So again, let's talk about those other potential options here. They could go out on the free agent market. There's still some, number 5 types that are out there looking for jobs right now. Mm-hmm. And maybe at this point, even if it is just for, a couple of starts, they're willing to sign a deal to make those starts, to fill in the gap between now and whenever Kirby gets back. Names like Spencer Turnbull, who we know the Mariners have had some interest in and also has the ability to pitch out of the bullpen.
Did both last year.
Yeah. Drew Smiley. Favorite of yours, of course. I know you want to talk about him. Marco Gonzalez is still out there, and obviously you're familiar with him. Yeah. Lance Lynn is still looking for a job right now.
Mm-hmm. So not a lot of great options, but there are some free agent options. And also there are going to be guys who signed minor league deals who aren't going to make their team, or perhaps a guy who's out of options who might be available via trade at the end of this month too. So there are going to be some areas the Mariners can and should explore because Emerson Hancock is just not it.
Yeah. I'd say Logan Evans, but he hasn't had a particularly great spring either. So
I might trust Hancock more than Evans right now.
That's saying something.
It says more about Evans. But
it says a lot coming from you.
It's been rough. It's been a rough spring for Logan. And you don't want to, judge somebody off of 4 innings pitched. Yeah. It's been awful.
There've been some bad innings. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Hancock, by the way, getting the ball tonight, of course. The first actual game the Mariners are deploying real players in that'll be en route will be started by Emerson Hancock, because why not? God forbid we get to watch Brian Wu. That would be fun. But
I got to watch him last night.
Yeah, good for you. Everybody else in Seattle.
MLB TV.
Yeah, everybody else in Seattle had to watch Jonathan Diaz. Cool.
Yeah, that game sucked.
Yeah. But anyways, Hancock's probably the guy, but they should absolutely go out there and talk to these free agents, even if it is for only, one start.
Yeah, Turnbull makes a lot of sense. Again, there's a history there of the Mariners being interested in him.
Yep.
And again, you can just easily transition him to the bullpen. Mm-hmm. If you want to keep him around. I mean, you don't have to. Now,
he's pretty good last year.
And then Smiley is another guy that can also do that. So, and that would make Colby very happy. That would turn this into a positive situation for Colby.
One of the saddest things, in my Mariners existence, is when the Mariners acquired Drew Smiley, who I loved, and then he never threw a pitch for the team because Jim Leland is an idiot. So, to have that moment just for me personally, to see Smiley throw a pitch in a Mariners uniform in a regular season game, that would make me very happy. I've been a Smiley fan since I dominated with him on MLB The Show 2K12, not the show, MLB 2K12 on my Xbox 360. Curveballs for days. And that'd be awesome. And again, Smiley also, like Turnbull, starting experience, out of the bullpen experience. He can do both. He can transition.
Yeah.
Both guys make a lot of sense, even as bullpen arms for this team. Smiley might want another lefty in this bullpen. Saucedo has been great. He has an option left. But if, it might depend on the money, which the Mariners still have. They still have a little bit of money.
Yeah, the Mariners have about $4-ish million left of that $16 million that was reported that they were given by ownership. So you can sign one of these guys for less than that.
Yeah, it's that time. I think my preference would be Turnbull. That would be my number one guy that I would go out there and try to get. I think after that, it's probably Smiley, but honestly, Smiley, Lynn, Gibson, they're all number 5s.
That'd be really funny if they signed Kyle Gibson.
Yeah, I know, right? I was thinking about that. Like, it'd be something. But those are all just like number 5s.
Long-time Locked On Mariners listeners know.
Yeah. But I think Turnbull is the one who has not only the most upside, but also the most versatility for you, and makes sense after Kirby is back, if he indeed ever gets back.
Which it seems
like it, but again,
that's going to happen. It seems
it's a shoulder. Okay.
Yeah. No, I get it, but it does seem like, I mean, they've said that there is no issue with like the rotator cuff, the labrum, anything like that. So
yeah, those things never crop up. So yeah, one other thing to note here is that technically, if the Mariners won, they only have to use the number 5 starter once until like April 15th.
Oh, because the off days.
They play.
I can't imagine that they would do that right.
I don't think so either, because it's so early. But
yeah,
if the alternative is more Logan Gilbert starts and less Emerson Hancock starts, they might want to consider it. They'll have to use the number 5 starter against Detroit on the 31st of March. Then they have an off day on that Thursday, so they could skip Hancock his turn, which I think would be then against San Francisco on Sunday, and then they could skip him again because they have another off day on Thursday. So the Mariners can actually skip Hancock twice, and then after that Thursday, they have the day off on Monday, right after that Thursday. So weekend series day off. So I don't think they would have to use Hancock after the Detroit game until Toronto. Yeah, at Toronto, you might get to see him pitch. So I know you've been super excited about watching Emerson Hancock pitch. Now I want Kirby to be out until mid-April. But so that is an option. They could skip that number 5 spot. It doesn't seem likely they would do that because they do also want to protect Logan and George, not George, Miller and Wu and Luis, and asking them. I mean, they'd still be going on full rest, but it would be nice to give them an extra day early in the year. So again, probably not going to happen, but there are enough built-in off days that the Mariners, even if Kirby isn't ready to pitch until May, like I think looking at the calendar right now, you probably only have to use your number 5 spot twice. So that is also an option open to them.
And I have seen Easton McGee pitch in person before, so I
Throw
can
one
endure. I can endure. Yeah, this is going to be Emerson Hancock's best start of his entire career.
Not a high bar to clear.
What was it? The one that he had against the Diamondbacks last year?
Oh, what did he do? Go 5 innings, give up 1 run?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, 3 strikeouts, 3 walks, about 12 hard hit balls. Yeah. Domination.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember it being like
it was a lot. I remember it was a lot.
It was a solid day, and he gave the club a chance to win, and that's all that matters.
Oh, good. Just give him a chance. Ugh, gross.
You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, so we're still going to get into a couple of your trade ideas here on Fan Fiction Friday. That's what this whole show was supposed to be, but the Kirby news dropped and kind of derailed everything for us. We had 7 trades picked out. We'll probably get to 2, maybe 3 of them. We'll see how long it takes for us to go through the first couple. So we're doing something different this week. And we're going to be doing this a little bit more as we do Fan Fiction Friday in the future, where we're going to issue challenges for you guys. So themes for Fan Fiction Friday. So this week, we asked you to submit trades that would be deemed selling moves by the Mariners. So if the Mariners were selling it, let's just be safe and assume it's at the deadline this year. So we'll work off of that. So, maybe like, for example, Logan Gilbert, we'll be looking at Gilbert as someone that has 2.5 years left rather than 3 full years like he does right now. All right, so let's get into the first trade. This one comes from Jeff. Cubs offer Owen Casey, Moises by Astros, and Jackson Wiggins to Seattle for Logan Gilbert and Gregory Santos.
Yeah, I think this is a good one to start with because, as you guys might expect, most of the trades we got involved Logan Gilbert or George Kirby.
Yeah.
Or Andres Munoz was probably the third most popular guy. And again, it's worth noting that we are assuming that everybody here is healthy and they're playing to roughly what you would expect them to play one way or another. And the teams that are trying to acquire these players obviously would be contenders. So we're assuming a lot for these, but aren't we always? I look at this deal and I like Casey. I like, is it Ballesteros? Is that how we're pronouncing it?
Yeah, I think it's Ballesteros or Ballesteros.
Yeah. He's a catcher first baseman. I've seen very few people who think he can catch. Like it's worse than Harry Ford. Like it's not like one of those situations. So he's probably a first baseman. The bat profile, like just the hit tool and all that stuff, kind of reminds me of Ty France a little bit. 21 years old, Ty France, left-handed hitter though.
Mm-hmm.
Wiggins is just, kind of a lottery ticket arm, a solid prospect, but not, an elite prospect or anything like that. And I look at that and I go, that looks an awful lot like the Luis Castillo trade package that the Mariners gave up 2 years ago. But here's the difference. Logan Gilbert is going to impact 3 pennant races.
Yep.
Luis Castillo impacted 2 when he was traded.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're the Mariners, you're not going to take Luis Castillo value for Logan Gilbert because Logan Gilbert has more value because he has more club control. So to me, this is too light. Again, I like Casey. I like Ballesteros. Wiggins is a fine, tertiary piece. And if we were doing this next summer and this is what the Mariners could get for Logan Gilbert, I would think that'd be like, okay, I mean, I could wrap my head around that. That's about what they got. That's about what Castillo, got for the Reds.
Yeah.
Gilbert and where Castillo was 2 years ago, pretty close to the same, tier of guys. So I don't think you are factoring in the extra year of club control, the extra pennant race of club control here.
Yeah.
And for that reason, and you're also kind of not factoring in the inclusion of Gregory Santos, who by himself has an opportunity to be a very valuable trade chip this July. So I think you're just way too light.
Yeah. So you get 3 bites at the apple with Gilbert. He's making $7.625 million this year. You're going to get him well below market value next year and the year after in arbitration. This return is just not elite enough for those circumstances. This deal has to start with Matt Shaw for me.
I think so. Yeah.
It has to start with Matt Shaw, and it probably also has to include Casey on top of that or Cade Horton.
Yep. I'd agree. Again, you're getting 3 playoff pushes with Logan Gilbert. You're only going to pay him, the team who acquires him, at the deadline, $3 million for the rest of this year, and then probably $10 to $12 million next year, and then probably 15 to 8. So you're getting him for 3 pennant races, and he's going to cost you $25-30 million total. That's well below what he's worth. So yeah, it's if you want to trade Logan Gilbert, it's going to cost you more than this because Casey's not an elite prospect. He's a good one. He's not an elite prospect. No. It's just more. You kind of need to account for the extra year of club control. At the very least, you need to do that, and then you should also probably account for Gregory Santos because he is not just a throw-in. Well, he might end up being, but I don't think he's going to be. So yeah, I think this is a 40. I think you're just like 1 year valuation off on Logan Gilbert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll go with a 40 as well. All right, next trade comes from Stan. It's another Gilbert trade, this time to the Red Sox for Cutter Crawford, Tristan Casas, Christian Campbell, and Vaughn Grissom.
Yeah, I think it would take something like this. Would the Red Sox do this? I don't know. Maybe not. I know that they're not in love.
Well, and again,
with
we're operating under the assumption that this is happening mid-season. So are they willing to subtract both Crawford and Casas from their major league roster during what I would assume would be a division/pennant race for them?
Sure. I mean, also like what's going on with Bregman and Devers,
right. Campbell will probably be up with the ball club at that point.
Right. So yeah, I mean, like, I think this is probably what it would take to get Seattle to trade Gilbert, at this deadline. So I don't know if Boston would do this. I don't know if they should. I mean, obviously you get 2 major leaguers for one, and then you get the best prospect in baseball, arguably. So yeah, I mean, and he's basically major league ready as well. So you kind of get 4 major leaguers, at least 2 established ones, and 2, one of them literally the best prospect in baseball, the other one a former highly touted prospect. I think this is the type of thing that it would take to get the Mariners' attention. Again, would Boston do it? I don't know, Red Sox fans, probably not. But you guys also kind of think you should be able to get Logan Gilbert for Casas straight up. So your valuation sucks too. So yeah, my hunch is that Boston would probably look for a cheaper option, knowing they're getting an inferior pitcher if this is the cost. But I do think this is the type of thing it would take for the Mariners to kind of look at it and be like, yeah, like let's explore this. So yeah, I'd give it a 55.
Maybe I'm more so like in the middle of a 50 and a 55 because I'm not sure if the Red Sox would do this, particularly mid-season. Because we're talking about subtracting probably 3 guys from their major league roster in the middle of a playoff race for them.
Right. So, I mean, as good as Gilbert is, are they actually better after making this trade? Kind of depends on what Campbell's doing, obviously. Yeah. Depends on what version of Casas you're getting too.
Well, and how much of an upgrade is Gilbert over Crawford? He will be an upgrade, at least I think so. But how significant of an upgrade is it for the Red Sox to make that worth trading Casas and Campbell?
Right. Mid-season? I would say there's a very narrow range of circumstances in which we get to July and this trade would make sense for Boston. I mean, it's also pretty narrow that the Mariners would be selling Logan Gilbert in July anyways, but whatever. We're assuming a lot today, as I mentioned before.
All right, so we're going to go over one more trade. This one comes from Casey. Tampa Bay gets J.P. Crawford and Gabe Spire from the Mariners for Chandler Simpson and Jackson Baumeister. And Casey adds, since we are assuming Seattle is out, this also assumes Tampa Bay is in it, and J.P. Crawford has a bounce-back year. Seattle is thin in outfield prospects. Simpson is ready now, and Jackson has a good fastball with good command. So you would be trading year and a half of Crawford. He'll be due $12 million next year, which is important to note when it comes to Tampa. And then I don't know what you want to assume on Gabe Spire, that he's at least fine at this point.
I think for this deal to be possible, we kind of have to assume Spire's 2023.
Okay.
Gabe Spire.
Yeah.
Simpson is a guy who's turning heads right now in the Grapefruit League. He is perhaps the fastest player in baseball history. It's like some have joked it's 90 grade speed. He's a really good defender. He actually knows how to use that speed out in the outfield. The question is, as it always is with these guys, is, he can't steal first base. So can he get on in traditional ways? And, in the minors, he has gotten on base plenty. Now he's not going to hit for any power. There is 0 power here. If his speed is a 90, his power is a 10. Okay. So there's no power. So you're literally banking on stolen bases and defense here. And the Mariners have had players like that in the past. Alex Smith, for example, Rod Dyson, another one. So it's kind of one of those things. It's like, do you let the scars of Alex Smith kind of dissuade you from this good, but not elite prospect, despite having probably the single most broken skill, individual tool in baseball on the scale wise, at least. How much do you want to trust that? And there are a lot of people who think that Simpson could make the opening day roster for Tampa. I don't think he's played in Durham yet. I don't think he's even played in AAA yet. So yeah, Simpson's interesting. I don't know if they're going to be all that interested in JP. Now, if JP is having 2023 year also, I
think JP is probably worth more at that point.
Interesting. Yeah.
Especially since he has another year of club control at a more than fair number, $12 million.
Right. I mean, right now, the one thing to factor in here, though, is that the Rays do have Carson Williams, who is kind of expected to make his debut sometime in 2025. But right now, it looks like the Rays opening day shortstop is going to be either Taylor Walls or Jose Caballero.
Yeah.
JP Crawford's better than both of those guys.
Yeah. But if JP is just like a 110 WRC plus guy, which hopefully he is this year, and that's all he really needs to be, like we talked about, like he just needs to find some middle ground this year. If he does actually do that and find some middle ground, I think this is fair compensation.
Right. Well, I mean, I think if you're the Mariners, right, and you're out of it at this point, like JP is gone. You go, okay, well, Cole is going to play shortstop for the rest of the year. And then next year, we think at some point, Colt Emerson will be ready to go. And then, the arm is interesting. Tampa, very protective of their arms. They don't like to give them up. They always collect them. Mm-hmm. So would they make this trade? I mean, if Spire is 2023 Gabe Spire, that feels like the random Tampa Bay Rays dominant reliever, like Rodney all those years ago when they brought him in and he was unhittable and all those guys that have fought. JP Howell, sure. Fire Eisen. It feels pretty Tampa Bay Rays-y, like the deal in general.
Yeah.
There are a lot of like, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. But if they all happen,
like the wrong team for a JP trade. In my mind.
It just feels a little bit off. So like it's just one of those things where it's like right type of package. I think if we're assuming that JP is good and we're assuming Spire is good.
Yeah, if JP is just like middle ground JP, then this is totally fine. If it's 2023 JP, like I said, then I think you should get more than this.
Interesting. If it's 2023 JP.
I mean, because we're talking about a 140 WRC plus hitter with at least like average defense who's playing up the middle in a market that probably isn't going to have a lot of up the middle options in general.
Well, I mean, it's interesting is they are getting Kim back at some point. Keep that in mind as well.
Too. Yeah.
Caminero is pretty much anchored at third base now.
Yeah.
Brandon Lau is still there. He's at second base. So JP, if Kim is healthy, does JP even make sense? So I think the valuation is about right. I don't know if Tampa's the right team for it, though. So it's pretty interesting. I'm not sure because, again, I don't think it's the right team. But I think the circumstance and the just the general valuation put on these two guys with the parameters we laid out, just about spot on. So 50, that seemed like a fair compromise.
Yeah, 50. Because again, I think if JP is just up to realistic expectations, then this is a fine, more than fair trade package. I'm not sure about the team specifically. So I would give this more, frankly, if I felt that the Rays were a better fit for JP.
Yeah, I just think with Kim there, obviously the money that JP is making on top of all that, it's tough for me to see the fit here with Tampa. So yeah, I'd agree.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.